of speaking to Sam Wakefield. He is the founder of Close It Now Sales Training. I had the pleasure of actually talking with him on his podcast the other day. It was a fabulous one, really great interviewer, and just a kind-hearted man. How you doing, Sam?
I am fantastic this morning. Thanks for having me on, Will. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Did I miss anything on the introduction? Like, I know you're a
No,
man of mystery.
I'm a guy that talks for a living, basically. No, I do a lot of things, but no, for the sake of this episode, I think we're solid, man. I'm sure we'll get into a little bit of what I do and how I those types of things anyway. So
Oh, kind of just going to jump right into it, actually. So, why did you want to start having mental health on your podcast?
well, that's a great segue question. So my show is called Close It Now, and which is I launched the podcast 7 years ago, and it was an extension because I've been in home services and home improvement and in the sales world and as a trainer for 20 years now. And I couldn't find a training out there that I felt comfortable sending my people to because everything was either super high pressure and and at the same time it was right before COVID happened, right before the pandemic, and so I've run a podcast and been doing this all through every bit of that journey. And one of the things that happened along the way is I realized that it doesn't matter if you're only focusing on a sales script and those types of things, then people are only going to ever see limited results and they'll never be able to grow past where their internal barriers are in their mind. And so out of the last several years, my tagline has become work to become someone worth buying from. And that means be a better human being. And as you function in integrity and service at the highest level, the only way to become someone better is to deal with our internal junk. And so I was super excited when we met recently and came across each other on social media because mental health is one of the biggest crises in the world right now, and that nobody's talking about. And so there's such a stigma around mental health a lot of times. And so especially in a world of the trades and home services which is mostly male dominant and the traditional mindsets. And so that was the impetus to have you on the show. It's like, let's start normalizing this, because the only way to be truly successful is to be able to put down a lot of the deal with the trauma and the luggage that we all carry around.
So, there was a question, there was something that you said, you referenced it several times. It's almost like trading cards between people when you go to these shows and you're at the hotels where it's, hey, how many heart attacks did you have? How many
Mhm.
divorces did you have? Tell me a little bit more about how the traveling, the sales, the constant getting after it
Mhm.
takes a toll on the family and also on the body.
Oh, geez, yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, what you're referencing there is that was one of the big drivers for my mission with my company, and doing sales training and business growth and business optimization and leadership is that, I would go to conferences and trade shows, and it was these guys that own these huge, they were super famous legends in the industry that own these enormous companies and have had major exits. And at the bar at the end of the day, it's exactly what you were saying. It's almost like a scorecard. They carry it around as a badge of honor of, and it was always those same two questions: how many heart attacks have you had, and how many wives have you had? And it just grossed me out so much. I realized there's a better way. We have to do better. So to my mission is to raise the standard of basically everyone I come in contact with. But in my, where I really have the most impact is home improvement and home services. To tell guys and gentlemen and ladies that you can have both. It's not mutually exclusive. You can have an incredible home life. You can have incredible health as well as build a highly successful business. It's not one or the other. And so what that leads to is there's, the grind culture. Especially in the United States, it's some of the worst in the world for that. Is just the fact that, and then especially now we've got all of these trainers that are coming up, quote unquote, your how do you 10x this, and if you don't have this incredible six-pack abs, then your wife's going to leave you and you're going to go broke and you're never going to be successful. People out here that are just spewing this vomit message all the time, and it's not healthy. And yes, I understand personal responsibility and striving to be more, do more, but when you're constantly only ever focused on how hard and how fast can I run, then you can't pour from an empty cup. And that's why this conversation, I think, is so important and valuable, because it's the big missing piece in a lot of industries that are really driven industries.
So I'm going to circle back to a thing that you said, being a person worth buying from. When you started to take that mantra, how did it impact your relationship with your family?
It was clunky at first, actually, because I realized, first of all, that I had to, if I was going to do this with integrity, I had to live it and not just preach it. And so for my, in my own, my own life, it was clunky at first, but at the same time, it forces you to really just get a big mirror out. And so the saying that I and mantra that I really believe and promote and live by, that marries that one, is sales is not it's not the performance of an hour, it's the overflow of a life. And because we just naturally will resonate with people, and we've all had those experiences in life. So I'll circle back to this, how it applies to me. But what I mean by that is, something I say really often is your energy introduces yourself before you ever knock on the door. And so we've all had these experiences in life. Say we're at a gala or a speaking event or a dinner or something, and no announcements made, no fanfares made. But it's all of a sudden the whole room seems to quiet down and everyone looks to see who just walked in. And we've all experienced that. We know what that's like. And so when that happens, my question then is, why? What was different about that individual that made the entire room stand at attention without any kind of announcement? They just felt it. They knew that person was somehow different. And so and of course, if you look at science, that's a measurable thing. We're all these, we're basically batteries with an electromagnetic field around us. But what determines that the strength and the size of that field is our natural vibrational state, where our positivity, basically. If somebody that's negative and depressed and is struggling, that field is very tiny, and there's no influence there. And so when I say work to become someone worth buying from, that means fixing all of the elements in your life to function at a higher state, to be the happier, positive, focused person has natural, just a bigger natural field around them. And again, it's science or it's woo woo, whichever way you want to look at it. But that's what I mean by being someone worth buying from, is to work on the areas of your life to be a complete healthy person, because those are people that people want to be around. And then when you apply it to a sales role, because that's what I train, that it's just natural. So you don't have to have these crazy closing scripts or any of that kind of thing. There's no manipulation. It's a matter of just, I'm a person of character, and so people naturally want to do business with you. And so that then and at the same time, so coming back to your question, that also means that I had to work on my personal relationships. I had to work on my relationships with my kids, the ones with my parents, the one with my partner. I had to work on my health. I dropped like 50 pounds and put on a bunch of muscle, because if I'm going, and not that it's about, no one has to look identical, but you've got to be the best version of yourself. So nutrition, fitness, relationships, personal growth. Zig Ziglar used to say, personal growth is like taking a shower. You can't do it once on Sunday and expect it to last all week. And so, and then and spiritual practice, I promote having a solid spiritual life. This is not about any specific religion. It's about doing things in alignment with your own core values that you know you should be doing to move that needle forward. You either are or you aren't. And so many of us, we get lazy or lax in a lot of these areas, but when you start to just very intentionally work on the small habits in each of those areas to move the needle forward, all of a sudden your whole life starts to expand in a way that, and it starts to multiply because each of those areas start to compound together.
Hmm. It's so I got the tough question for you. As a father, as a partner, as a son, when you started to change your vibration, what kind of friction did it cause in those relationships? Even though we're all rooting for you, what is the friction that the blowback that you felt?
Yeah, it's interesting. Thank you for that question. I've never analyzed it exactly like this. I would tell you that it was different with every different relationship. Um, with my in my core family here in my own home, with my kiddos, it was fantastic. It was positive. Um, with my wife, it was definitely positive as well, but different because of the relationship being different. There's times when I'm gung ho about something, and it's like with everyone, you when you are on a path and someone else is or isn't on the exact same path, then you have to be. This is something that's really important to note, remember in your own growth journey, is not to shame anyone else if they're not on the same path with you, or they might be on the path but at a different place, moving at a different speed. And so many times we get so overexcited about what we're doing that we forget to look back outside and recognize they're in their own journey. And so and then actually going to my parents, they are not at all on any type of a growth path, mentally or internally. And so it caused serious friction there. In fact, to the place where I'm working really hard to repair some relationship because they decided that they don't want to grow. And so it makes a really difficult, like when we go back for the holidays and stuff. And so it's very difficult to exist in the same space when they are so vibrationally different. Doesn't mean I love them any less, but it also means that I have to protect myself and my family so we don't get drugged down into negativity more than we're able to recover from either.
What about the relationship with self? Because there's a lot of doubt that comes in. There's all this other ways I want to go back to that the fully autonomous like thing where you just step up, wake up, take a shower, moving through the day, and that's you. How was it with the change mentally and physically and just emotionally?
Yeah, that's y- I would, the way that my brain heard that question, I want to actually discuss slightly because it felt to me like the question was almost from looking backward in the review mirror as if it was a journey that we're past. But the way I want to, then the reason I bring that up, I want to really mention that there is no destination. And so with that, um, it's constant. And so I feel like with this type of a growth, um, so the relationship with self is one where as you grow a bit, you're finding a new level, and when you get to that new level, you have some very similar types of resistance and struggles and imposter syndromes, and all of these things will start to creep in again. Not that, and it's like, oh, hey, old friend, we had this conversation in the past. I kicked you out. Why'd you come back? And they're like, oh, but all of this is brand new. You're at a new level that you've never gone to. So the mystery of that,
Hmm.
your identity is not to the place yet of the new level. So here we come. Hi, I'm Miss Imposter Syndrome again. I'm here to protect. And the way I see it, it's like it's there to protect us in a way, but we have to give it permission. We have to just basically remind it, I am safe. I am confident. I am the person who can. You can go play. You don't need to protect me anymore. This is where we're headed, and we're going there. Or if we don't do that, we'll just stay stuck until we decide. At least that's the way my brain has processed it. It's like we've got these limiting beliefs, and we've got all of these things that they start to happen at every single level, because it's almost like two different things. I see it like this. I feel like there's a certain level of success that most people can get to without a whole lot of struggle, because they're small, and it seems like it's the what's possible conversation. And so when people start to have a better existence, better relationships, maybe more successful income, all those types of things, there's the level of what they've grown up thinking is reasonable. And then if they go just past that into a little bit more successful, that's okay. That's reasonable, that's normal, that's doable. But when somebody hits that place to go into the level that's dramatically past that, which is who I work with the most in my life and my trainings, are people who strive to be top performers. And so what happens is there's this huge gap between what most people accept as average or successful and what people who really want to do great things think is successful. And that's the mysterious unknown and the anxiety that creeps in, because I've never experienced that life. I've never been there. And so it's like all of figuring that out along the way to reset the identity to those next levels. And it's different for every person. There's no right or wrong answer here, but we all struggle with this. And so the way to overcome that's the struggle is, but it's also the fun part of the journey, because it's learning new things about yourself at every step of the way. And you're like, wow, I didn't even know that I struggled with this until all of a sudden I'm staring in the mirror of this new thing. And I guess I do. And so, okay, how do we figure this out? And sometimes we can do it internally. Sometimes we have to, talk to a guy like you. It'd be like, hey, man, I'm struggling with this. I need some help.
So while you were talking, there's several things that was going through my head. One was about the flea experiment. Are you familiar with it?
Is that the one with the mason jar?
With the glass ceiling and the
Mhm.
Yep, it's about the mason jar where, like, they would jump up to the top, and then after
Mhm.
they moved to the top, they got conditioned. This is my limited belief. This is my limited perspective, and I believe that happens with us, and as we get conditioned as humans, this is all we can really hit, and if we believe it enough, we stop aiming for higher because it
Mhm.
just seems too radical. The other thing was the initial question they asked you, but I'm glad that you took it the way you took it, was about the relationship with self, and the imposter syndrome is where it hit in. It's like, hey, you know what? I'm going forward. Now, how does this look? Well, I've never been here. And then imposter syndrome is like, come back here, buddy. We're going too far. And I'm also kind of glad the way that you approached it when you said it was, hey, come along with me. Come along with me. And part of some of the conversations I've had where people refer to their dark side as the monster or the beast, and I ask people, I'm like, why don't you become friends with it? Like, it sounds crazy, but it's like
Mhm.
that beast, that imposter syndrome, all that belief system came there for a reason. They wanted to keep you safe, but understanding why it was trying to keep you safe, you could be able to stop having that damn thing trip you up like you're riding a
Mhm.
bike and somebody's shoving a stick in your spokes.
It's so true. I totally see it. As you're saying this, my brain does a lot of visualizations. I think in word pictures a lot of times. And I literally just saw myself sitting down at like in a coffee shop with this imposter syndrome character of myself, and we're sitting here having coffee discussing whatever the topic is. But I love what you just said, because when you embrace that as a part of you, it doesn't mean you'll ever just and I think this is where a lot of people really screw things up, because they try to just literally kill it and bury it and destroy it and move it away, and then they don't have the vantage point that that perspective provides in their life. Because I think it's a valuable, healthy vantage point when we understand what it is and we put a good solid label on it. It takes away the fear and the damaging aspect of it, but we do also get the ability to uh, basically become the observer of our lives. We get to look at our lives and what's going on through our own vantage point, and also through that vantage point at the same time. And I think when you can use that constructively in a healthy way versus just trying to avoid it and escape it.
Because actually, Chelsea, she's one of my most frequent listeners. She was talking about the Sharpie experiment with the ants, where they did the line and that thing had to stay inside of it. And then also one of her Carl Jung quotes, she was saying that I'm looking everywhere. Maybe I imagined it. And she was talking about one of the things that you were saying about like really envisioning. And, but going back to what you were saying, it was like, how do you like take that time, take the step back? Because in today's society, it's about go, go, go. Um,
Hmm.
A- Alan Watts talked about it in The Way of the Zen, where here in America, we have to go to lotus pose to be able to just sit. Over
Hmm.
there, they do a walking meditation because they don't need to be rushing. Where
Hmm.
we wake up, we have a phone in front of us. We go to bed, we have a television. We work, we got a screen in front of us. And it's like all hail the technology. And we are starting to forget about the inner dialogue of ourselves. What is going on? Where was this inner dialogue created?
Hmm.
And then, if you're able to understand where the dialogue was created, and this is why I'm a big proponent of therapy, is once you understand the emotions of the certain traumatic events, regardless if it's complex, you can start to you can get a chance to really rechange your narrative of it.
Hmm.
So when you're healing, you're able to now look at the analysis differently. So when I see a pothole when I'm driving, I don't think, "Oh, am I looking for wires to see an IED there?" And it's like, or if I hear footprints, I'm not looking for certain things anymore.
Hmm.
And now it's actually understanding where did we get to that point, and I'm using those extremes to be able to paint a picture of our self-limited beliefs came from somewhere. And when we actually are able to really understand that, we're able to then walk through.
Hmm.
But as a salesperson and you doing what you're doing, how important is it to have a mentor along this journey?
Oh, it's everything. It definitely is everything. Years ago, I went to a it was a train it was a conference for a weekend that well, it was more of a personal growth seminar. We'll call it that. That I invested in to get to, and when I learned this really cool formula from the trainer. He said successful people in life have, here's the formula. He said always have a coach, sometimes multiple,
Hmm.
and always have someone you're coaching, or a mentor and a mentee.
Hmm.
He said the value and the power of that is everything. And so I would say yes, 100% you have to have a mentor. And at the same time, it's really important to also have someone that you're a mentor to. That way, you become a conduit for the information and for growth. And the more that you do that, the more that you can be poured into. Otherwise, you become a cup. Like we said, you can't pour from an empty cup. But also, if you're not turning around and passing that on, then you can fill up and overflow, and then you can't receive anymore either. And so the best formula for success, in my honest opinion, say however we want, is to have both, to constantly have something, because you can't go somewhere you've never been without the knowledge or the growth or whatever to get there, and we can't live long enough to learn it all ourselves. So that's why we have books. That's why we do personal growth. That's why we watch TED Talks and listen to podcasts and all those types of things. And when you have the opportunity to have a coach and or mentor who's gone ahead, gone before you, has been where you want to go. Never, and I, of course, would never recommend anybody to take on a mentor that has not done what you want to accomplish, because then that is an example of those who can't do teach. You've got to learn. So much of it is from experience. And so having that mentor in your life will constantly pull you forward and hold you accountable. It's one of the main things, especially for me. The things in life that are to be successful for all of us are easy to do, but they're also easy not to do. And so having that person in your life that every now and then will just kind of kick your ass and be like, hey, did you do the thing you said you were going to do? And when you have that accountability, it changes everything, because it starts to move that needle so much faster. And then when you can turn around and in love do the same thing for someone else, now we're establishing this whole system of growth. And it reminds me of a book I read years ago. It's a John Maxwell book, The 360-Degree Leader, which is just the power to influence for the positive every single person around you, doesn't matter what position. And it's just it's super powerful when you can start to do that.
So again, Chelsea goes back to saying, be a river, not a lake. The Dead Sea doesn't have an outlet, and it became too toxic for life.
100%. That's exactly right.
So when you were, I love the fact that you also saying having a mentee, having somebody who's not just for you, it's also about passing it on. How many times have you have had that mentee ask you a question that even though you know the answer, it was just never phrased that way? And then all of a sudden unlocked a different narrative.
That's what I love about everyone has a different perspective. And when you adopt the mindset that I can learn something from everyone, so it becomes, yes, it's a mentor-mentee relationship, but when you also understand that I can learn from them, because now they're asking you questions. So, for example, just a little bit ago, when you asked me the question, I don't know what exact perspective that you were asking the question from, but I heard it in a way that I think from your response might have been different than what your original intention was of the question. So that's a great example of what happens a lot of times with with the people that I have as mentees right now and my coaching clients and things. I'll think, I've trained this topic 30,000 times in this one perspective, and this is what it is. And then all of a sudden they have this question that's like, and I just immediately have, wait a minute, this is so very different. I'm glad you asked that. And usually those turn into an entire new course or a training or a podcast or something. It's like, wow, I've never thought about that. But so I think that's the beauty of, when multiple people come together, the ideas that are shared can now be multiplied and built upon, instead of just being and I think we really have to understand this idea that as solid as truth as there is, it's a relative perspective based on your own life experiences. There are not that many, especially in science now. You do some research, there's not that many absolute truths that are still holding constant. They're constantly breaking science all the time right now. And I really feel like a lot of that's happening in mental health and in a lot of the different other types of sciences. Is what we thought was one way for so long is now being completely disproven. And so we're in this really, if again, depends on your perspective, I feel like we're in this really fun melting pot in this evolution of rediscovering a whole new way to do just about everything.
I think we have had to, based off of the fourth industrial revolution coming through, and with the AI and technology and repurposing the human identity, this really is forcing it. But what was interesting while you were talking earlier, just before, where it was about people phrasing things different, there is so much individual psychology that overlaps with the business psychology.
Hmm.
And I might have referenced this to you. I believe I did. Never Eat Alone. Are you familiar
Hmm.
with that?
Yeah, fantastic book.
So, growing up the way I grew up, I didn't realize that, like, I always felt, and I would say at that time, it was an absolute, I always felt it was a tit for tat relationship, and I didn't want to owe anybody anything. And when I'm mentally trying to heal, and I started reading this book, and it was like, yeah, that is just like, it's called transactions.
Hmm.
It's how you shut down the possibility of being able to really connect with a human. And it was talking about the infinite mindset, and then also having groups of people come together and talk. And I'm like, so even though I was reading about the stuff in psychological or nonfiction, it took up to that point to really be like, here's the key you've been looking for. I don't know if you have ever came across something very similar to that too. I know we're talking about people, but I wasn't sure
Hmm.
if also other theories that just come across, and it's like, wow, it's almost like you just takes the uh, takes the pressure off your chest.
Yeah, there's I love I've been a voracious reader since I was in personal growth. That very seldom do I read a fictional book. Every now and then, and usually it's something like The Alchemist that has a
Great
really
book.
solid story with it, or Four Agreements, or something like that. What some people would call fiction, but normally it's nonfiction. And so since I was 19, I was blessed as very young in life. At 19, I was gifted my first personal growth book. For my birthday, a friend of mine gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and that just
He's a
instantly
Marine
started me
too.
on this. Yeah, instantly started me on this journey. But so to answer your question, so many times across my life, I've come across these different mantras or sayings that have just become my north star. And one of I was like, interestingly enough, I'm sure it spontaneously popped into my head this morning. I'm sure it was to remember to say it here. I learned this from one of my first business mentors years ago at the first company I was at. A guy named Brian Winkleman. He used to say, "Don't just do what's right, or don't do what's right. Do what's generous. Don't always just do what's right. Do what's generous." And that has really ingrained in me very deeply when I was really young. I say really young. I was 26 when I went to work for him the first time. And, it just has always stuck with me in the heart. It's like, don't just do what's right, do what's generous. And that when you start to adopt this idea that my life mission is to give more value than I take, everything else starts to work out around that. And so those that's a couple of examples of those. The other one that has like just hit me like a ton of bricks years ago when I first heard it is I don't lose. I either win or I learn. I win or I learn. If it's not successful, that's fine. It's still successful because I'm learning what not to do. So all of this starts to combine into some guidance, this internal guidance system that kind of pulls you back to center when you start to drift. When you have, I love axioms and those types of things. So it just keeps me little short sayings that keep me on track when when life happens, because life is going to happen. And so how do we pull back to the place where we know we need to be to constantly be moving our own needle forward?
So talking about the growth and and we were talking about mentees. How do you influence them to? How do you help them understand about heart attacks and wives and the divorce rates and suicide? Do you ever actually take the time to sit down with them and really give them that type of perspective of like, go ahead.
Yes, yes and no. Indirectly, I would say. Well, I say that except for I have had plenty of coaching clients. So when someone coaches with me, it turns into more than always. It's got to be more than just sales training specifically. So, no one can really be around me for any amount of time that we don't talk about something important in life. Just because that's who I am. I'm not going to just stay surface level because I feel like that's a waste of time for everyone. And so, yes, there have been, generally speaking, I always take people through exercises on how to improve the different areas of their life in a nice, in an organic way that's not forcing things, but also, inspiring growth. Because my expectation when I work with people is they're they're coachable and they're going to implement the things that we discuss. Of course, success happens at the speed of implementation, and that's also my measuring rod with them of how I know things may or may not be going on in their life that we need to discuss. Because when someone's not implementing the basics and the business things, then we'll just have a session. I'll just like hold the phone. Let's pump the brakes. Let's have a real conversation and drop in what's going on. And so then we, can start to address a lot of the other more serious topics a lot more directly. And so that's where I think any good coach should be able to bleed into different areas of the life of components to someone's life. If you're truly a mentor type of person, or whoever's listening, if you have a mentor, there's different reasons that people have different categories, but it should influence at least growth in an area, or at least recommend or be able to, even if it's like, hey, that's not my special, I don't know anything about that at all. However, my influence to you is, you know, let's connect you with someone who can, or you've got to address this in your life, or the rest of these areas of your life are going to be limited until you take care of this. Because it all works together in a way so much more than we ever understand. Another mantra that I live by is how you do anything is how you do everything. And so one of the easiest things that I start taking people through is, and I learned this from my coach, is just that a daily, I have them just start to keep track of those little white lies. And it's like we all have those places, and they show up in one of two ways usually. When someone, so for example, somebody asks you a question and you almost give them the right answer, but we change it just enough. Or so that's one of the obvious ones. The other one that shows up is the way that we lie to ourselves. We start to justify the things in our own life that we do or don't do, or the lies we tell ourselves around things. And it's not necessarily about making a change here, but the more we become aware of it, then if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So by measuring that, so I'll just have them do, hey, how many did you have this week? And in fact, I know one of my coaching clients' numbers, his first week, it was like 38. Second week, it was like 26. But then he went like 3 or 4 weeks in a row where it was just low 20s. And I asked him, I was like, so why is it staying the same? He says, because I'm scared to go all in on this. And I was like, okay, well, what are you scared of? And so we worked through that. And now his numbers are down in the, low teens and single digits. Strictly from awareness and forcing himself to address the things that, and so the reason we start there is because it's small and it's a tiny adjustment. But again, how you do anything is how you do everything. So we don't realize when we have one little teeny tiny area of our life that we're compromising on, well, there's other things in our life we're compromising on that we're not admitting. And so it all bleeds through to every single component. That was a long answer to a short question. But
no, I'm over here just like thinking about what you were talking about, the white lies, the little pivots. I would go to go watch you speak, and they'd be like, "So, what is the magic of sales?" And you expect this huge answer. Well, stop fucking lying to yourself.
Yep.
Oh,
I know. It's so funny. You know, when people so here's a fun sales example around that. When people, because the biggest question I get, of course, is people want to be able to make more sales to make more money, and the whole cycle. So, of course, in that conversation, it's always, "Hey, I need help overcoming objections." And so my question to this is literally where we start. It's like, okay, what's the main objection you get? And we'll say it's, oh, they always have to get 3 bids.
always.
Okay, so I asked them, I was like, well, when you shop, how do you buy? Do you always get 3 bids? Because you're literally going to attract into your life who you are.
Hmm.
If you always get the, hey, your price is too high objection, I'll ask them, when you shop, do you ask for a discount? And if they do, it's like, you're going to attract exactly who you are. You might not have to verbalize it, but we are the thing. And so the people naturally will respond in the same way. And so it's really, really, really interesting when that happens.
The law of attraction you're talking about right now. The some people call it woo stuff, but it's really is the truth. It's when you are being that change, you actually get those people. When you are disruptive, you get those people.
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
Go
And,
ahead.
and there's science behind it. I do all the brain science and studies and stuff. It's literally just called mirror neurons in our bodies that start to mirror the people around us. So if somebody isn't listening, if you're listening and you're like, I don't buy into that, look up the science behind it because it's verifiable. So there you go.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm actually the worst person that buys stuff because the girl, Candace, the girl I'm seeing, she will actually say, "Hey, like I will shop. I've been looking for." I was like, "Do I want a TV? Do I don't want a TV?" Until I actually figure out if I really want a TV,
Hmm.
and I'll be looking, but I just won't buy. But I was like, I want to get business cards, and then I went to a place and I talked to this one lady, really nice lady, and she was telling me, "Oh, this is the price." I'm like, "Well, I'll take 1,000 of them." And she's like, "You want it?" I'm like, "No, just can I just pay you with cash and can we have this and just let me know when it's done?" Like when I know I want something, and if the person is nice,
Hmm.
I'm going to spend a little bit extra, and especially if it's small business. To me, small
Hmm.
business is huge because I like to keep the money in the community, and I'm not. I know that's not for everybody, but I know that's for me. And
Hmm.
but if I'm undecided about something, I don't pull the trigger. I've been really doing my best to delay that gratification. I don't know why I decided to share that with you, but yeah, it's just I kind of felt judged. I was internally judged right there about that sales thing.
Well, that's your lens. But the most interesting thing is, when when we go down this road, it starts to open up so many pieces of our life that we've kept closed off for so long, and the things that we've chosen to avoid or not address.
Mhm,
And the more that you start to understand how every component of your life is intertwined way more than we ever thought. It's not this, when especially growing up in the States and having this concept of compartmentalization.
mhm,
Um, it it it's r- it's definitely been a detriment to a lot of people, because, okay, well, this is this component of my life and this component, and they work to keep things so very separate, and not understanding that it does affect the other areas of your life. And so then you get people living secret lives.
mhm.
Clearly, what we're seeing in everywhere right now. But not, and this is not a political conversation, but the commentary around it is, when when it becomes societally accepted to focus on compartmentalizing these different areas of our life and thinking that they will never touch each other and never bleed through, then you end up with a society that this starts to happen. And the more that we can come back to how we do anything is how we do everything, I think is one of the steps that will start to heal a lot of what's going on in our world, in our society, and how we're all connected and we're all have so many different shared core values, and it's just a different perspective someone's seeing it from. So let's stop fighting and let's actually embrace each other for our differences. And I think that's going to heal a lot of things that are, rifts right now.
I'm totally on board with you. It's the Gandhi didn't say this: "Be the change in the world you want to see." They paraphrased it,
Hmm.
and I believe that is the biggest thing that you can do. There was something you said earlier about being around people, and one of the things that I think it was Carl Jung that said it was, if you really love somebody, you'll be the best version of yourself for them.
Hmm.
Where if you are being the best version of yourself, what you give to other people is it cannot really be measured. It's like you come across somebody and they're having that bad day, and all you do is give them that smile. You just give them that little smile. It might actually be really upset that you smiled at them, but at the same time, it's like they didn't get that hostility that they've been so used to and so primed. And even
Hmm.
though you're meeting them with love, I believe the more that we love ourselves, the more that we're able to really love other people.
Hmm.
And I do believe what you're saying that love will be able to impact it. So the reason I keep looking down is I got myself a puppy last Tuesday, not this week, last week, and he was biting my toe before. Now he's biting my chair. So that's why I'm a little bit distracted.
It's all good.
But
It's all good.
I was going back to it. It's like how we love. It's like how do we actually really like change the world? And it is with love, and it deals with self love. And I really enjoyed like because I know when we were talking first, you were telling me about your own little you about not your little, but how your own journey was
Hmm.
and how it impacted you. Like some people they need to get into the details. Some people just need to talk about how the change looks.
Hmm.
And I believe business and psychology have so much overlap to it.
Oh, it does. When one of the things that I think has helped so much along the way, and like I said, it's a constant journey. I mean, literally, rewind back 6, 8 months ago before I got my latest coach. I was in a wall kicking moment of life and was like in this place of desperation in a way that I haven't been in a long time. And a lot of people would look at and be like, "Oh my God, what are you talking about? You're so successful, etc." And I'm like, "Yes, from perspective, but I know that I'm not doing well." And so it it causes us to always I think that one of the best things we can do is always be self-analyzing, and not in a critical way, but in a way of what can I improve? What can we do? And here's a great example. I mean, we all go through so many people have such horrible experiences in life. And one of the things that I learned a long time ago, and this really started about 12, 13 years ago now. So just a quick snapshot of a journey that I've been through. My 30s were hellacious. I'm 46 now, but my 30s were an absolute train wreck for a while in some ways. In other ways, business wise, I was winning national awards and getting national credibility. Now, the reason I bring this up is we have the ability to choose. One of my favorite mentors that I've had in life is Jim Rohn.
Hmm.
His fantastic, like all of the incredible personal growth stuff. And one of his quotes, I'm going to paraphrase this quote, is the winds of life blow the same on everyone. It's how you set your sails that determine if you make your destination or if you're bashed into the rocks. And so it's learning how to not just react, but how to choose a response. Because in every situation, we have a fraction of a second that we can either impulsively react or we can choose the response. And so that's the context for starting in my 30s. It started with my brother-in-law was on my installation crew at the company I was at, and he one day he didn't show up for work. We go well check. He committed suicide, which started this interesting season of life where it was a year and 1 day later, my wife's parents and her grandparents on her mom's side were in a horrible road rage traffic accident, and it instantly killed everyone in the car except for my father-in-law. And then 4 months later, my sister-in-law lost a 1-month-old to SIDS. And so this was the season of just started like a horrible downward spiral. And what I learned, the reason I bring that up, what I learned through that is, one of the coping mechanisms that my wife and I reached for was alcohol. I think I drank 5 lifetimes worth of alcohol in my 30s. Thankfully, I'm a little over 2 years sober now. But the important message here is what I intentionally chose, because I knew enough at that point, is I chose actually reached for personal growth as my other coping mechanism. And so the amount of books and that I was constantly driving, doing outside sales way out in the country, driving hundreds of miles a day. So I just had nothing but windshield time and time by myself. And I knew that if I didn't grab something like that much alone time in that season of life was not going to be a good combination for me. And so I just chose to. That's why I know so many quotes off the top of my head, because I had to live by them for so long. And it was really the only thing that was keeping me basically between the ditches. And so the reason I bring that up is what I want for everyone, everybody listening, everybody that I like touch or affect, is we all have crap we go through. It's how we choose our response that makes the difference. And so I'm here I just want to encourage everybody that be empowered to choose a healthy coping mechanism versus something else. We can choose, like I did with personal growth. I know people that choose exercise as a healthy coping mechanism. They get stressed out, they go for a run or they go work out or something like that. Choosing healthy food instead of things that are not going to serve. So that's one of my core tenets that I love to help people through, is just that message is so important to me because it definitely kept me on the road instead of the alternative. And so, yeah, so I intuitively felt I should share that. I don't know exactly why, but hopefully somebody needed to hear it today.
Well, that was going to be the last question I was going to ask you, but you freaking beat me to the punch already. No, and honestly, I'm super glad that you're sober. Really am glad that you're sober. And this isn't me defending alcohol at all. I hope people realize the alcohol for some people is just, it's the way that is a way to numb it. And
Mhm.
the healing that goes behind it, and when you are doing that work, which you have done the work and you've been doing the work and continuously doing the work, it's like weed, alcohol, substances, until you're able to really understand what's going on in that heart, what is
Mhm.
actually, what's pulling you to want to go into the ditch, using your language, it's that's when we start to get free from it. But
Mhm.
that healthy eating, the reading, the working out, I hope more people take that into accountability, because if you know all these quotes, you're able to engage with people so much deeper. If you're working out, you're able to go have a longer time and you get to be a bigger pain in the ass with them when you're in your 80s. Instead of being in that wheelchair asking you to be pushed around,
Mhm.
you can start knocking them over or just pushing them over. So, um,
Yeah.
to talk about,
We have a
right?
oh my gosh, it makes me think of, there's this meme that I've seen for years. Years ago, I was a health and fitness coach. But there's this meme that I saw, and it was two guys that were the exact same age. I think they were both like 65 or 70.
Mhm.
And one was in horrible shape, huge belly, and he looked 20 years older than the guy who was standing next to. They're identical ages. The guy next to him was healthy, fit, in shape, and it's not. And what I don't want people to hear is it's just looks. It's health. right? It's the actual how healthy are you? And so that's just such a clear indicator. Our life is made up of daily habits, and we get to choose what our life looks like, what our destination looks like. And for a lot of people, I mean, yes, it's a struggle. It's a lifelong struggle sometimes, but at the same time, it's worth it because longevity and health and all the things, and life shows up in ways we don't expect. Sometimes there's chronic illness and all kind of stuff that shows up that we have to be able to manage and deal with, especially when it shows up in our loved ones and we never expected it, and all of a sudden here it is. And then it's like, okay, how do we move through this and how do we improve? And so many things. Everything in life is a choice. We get to choose.
Well, Sam, I appreciate that, and I really do. Atomic Habits, power of habit. Just,
Hmm.
but no, I really do appreciate you going vulnerable. I should have just sat a little bit longer with that when you actually shared such a deep story, and I apologize. It's sorry again about your family, and
No,
um,
no, it's one of it's at the place now where it's like it happened. Um, it, Back to more mental health topic. I learned this from my wife that you don't have things in life happen, and you can remember them, but you don't always have to relive the emotion of it.
mhm.
And that's something that I learned a few years ago, to be able to separate that. Is like I have no problem retelling the stories now without reliving the emotion of it, because I was able to work through it. And when we understand that those are two different components, the fact that it happened and the emotions we have around it, we get to choose the emotion narrative, which is, I think, a very healthy way to be able to work through a lot of things. We all have different traumas and experiences, so that's how we can work through those. We don't have to relive the emotions surrounding it, get caught in that mental trap.
Well, you ever heard of cognitive processing therapy?
No.
What about prolonged exposure?
Well, as far as
Oh,
like being in cold, or like
no, no. So
as far as like a ice bath or something.
and I'm so glad that you actually brought this up. And after this little segment, I want to hear your final thoughts. But one of the things that people are so ambivalent about that healing process is losing those emotions because it's so common. Like for some people, so some of the people they
What, you
actually
have to share your dog's name now because he wants to be part of this conversation.
so one is called Copper, the other one is called Zeno, and so Jesus. So
Sorry, I didn't mean to
no,
distract you there.
no, no, no. You're good. You're good. I'm really glad that they're doing this, and I am glad that I'm
I
not
love
like.
that your show's live too. I think I've only ever been on one other live show before, so this is fun.
So, so it's not as professional. It's just more organic. So
Yeah,
the
love it.
the way that I when I was doing the peer role was, hey, when you are working through this, you'll still have the same memories. It'll still be a historical event, but the emotions won't be there. It won't be creating this volatility, this need to run, this need to be scared. The anniversaries of the dates will become not as harsh, not as
Mhm.
critical. The buildup of the date won't be as bad. The residuals of that date won't be as taking so long to come down. And you're not forgetting about those people, but you're continuously living for those people.
Mhm.
And it's hard for people to really understand that while they're in that moment in time.
Mhm.
But it's really cool. And yeah, I wanted just to touch base with that because that's something I've been preaching for a while, and I'm so glad
Mhm.
that you brought it up. Can I ask you for your final thoughts on what is the last message you want to be able to give to people?
I think for this show, my what I would say is, you're the author of your journey. You're the author of your life. And so, well, actually, let's marry two different ideas for this. One is you're the author of your journey, so you get to choose what it looks like. Just because your first 20 chapters or 15 or 30 or 40 or 50 chapters looked a certain way doesn't mean you can't have a plot twist. That's what I love about plot twist is you can change the trajectory of your life. And it's like Tony Robbins says that the life can literally change in a moment with a decision. And so when we marry this idea with the other concept that time is an illusion, kind of a little bit of speaking to what you were talking about historical stuff. The beginning of this, it will prove it real quick. The beginning of this podcast, it is not happening right now. That means it's only memory at this point. What's going to happen an hour from now? It's imagination. It hasn't happened, and we could absolutely change trajectory and do something completely different between now and then because of life. And so it's only imagination. So all we have is right now, and then it's gone, and right now, and then it's gone, right now, and then it's gone, and that's all we have. And so when you marry that concept with we get the ability to choose what our life looks like, and it's all based on the decisions I make right now in this moment and the daily habits that I have determines the outcomes over, and as those compound over time, that really we get to write our narrative, we get to choose our story. And so that's the encouragement I would leave everybody with today is like it doesn't matter what it looked like in the past because it's only memory at this point. And so you get the power every single moment. One of my favorite just mantras is there are no ordinary moments in life. No ordinary moments. And when you start to adopt that and live like that, it puts you in a place of gratitude that we're here now and we don't have to experience that stuff anymore. And moving forward, it can be at least one baby step or big step or however much we choose to focus on something different. So that's what I would leave everybody with today.
You're a hell of a coach, bud. I'm over here getting motivated by you right now. No,
I love it, man. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking a little bit more than an hour with me. I really do. It's Sam. It was. I'm glad I got to meet you or talk to you about several weeks ago, and you can just tell you have such a good heart, man.
Appreciate that. Thanks. That's truly it. I just want to see people win. I've seen so much pain and struggle in my life and those around me that I just never wish that on anyone. And again, going back to if you always give more value than you take, the rest will take care of itself.